Hey everybody, today I'm speaking to Dee Hamori. She's a Salesforce Architect at CoreRail. We've known each other for a few years now, may have even worked together in the past, and she's joining us to talk a little bit about her career journey, where she started, how she got to where she is today, and share some insights and feedback for anybody who's looking to grow their career within the Salesforce ecosystem. Dee, thank you so much for joining me. I would love to kick things off by sharing some of your background and how you got started in the Salesforce ecosystem. I know you have a somewhat non-traditional entry point.
So my training is actually in healthcare. I was a pharmacist, but kind of like throughout my education in pharmacy school and like working as pharmacist, I figured out pretty quickly that I did not enjoy the work I was doing. So at that point when COVID hit, I'm like, okay, this is like the perfect opportunity for me to take a second and reevaluate whether I want to continue as a pharmacist or if I want to switch to another field. And at that point, I started looking through different careers that I could have, and my goal at the time is basically evaluating, hey, what is the career that either with or without my pharmacy knowledge I can transition into without having to go back to school or basically invest a lot of money into. And I came across Salesforce actually on Reddit. Somebody suggested it and I looked into it, saw that they have an amazing training platform and I see a lot of success story from it. So I decided that's something that I want to try it out and start just teaching myself Salesforce on Trailhead. And after I think a couple months, I found my first job and started from there.
Amazing. So to follow up from there, what was your very first Salesforce related role and how has your career evolved since then?
Yeah, I started as a junior Salesforce admin. That was my first official paid job. Before that, I did volunteer for a nonprofit, also as a Salesforce admin. After, I would say, right now I'm like 4 or 5 years into Salesforce ecosystem. I grow from basically Salesforce admin to Salesforce consultant and then to architect and back to consultant for a little bit. And now I'm working as a Salesforce architect internally for a B2B SaaS company.
Amazing. I'm curious, what have been some of the differences that you've noticed in between in-house positions and consulting positions?
Yeah, that's really fun. Consulting, in my experience, is interesting. You kind of get to see a little bit of everything. You're not so deep in the trenches into like the day-to-day, the maintenance. Like as an internal Salesforce architect, there is a lot of dealing with the day-to-day, less like, oh, this is a new implementation, this is a new feature that we want to explore or whatever. It's more like, okay, this is our existing process, how can I make it better? I feel like there is in consulting, at least from my experience, there's a lot less of that. There's a lot of like new implementation we want to do, new feature that we want to explore, and how, of course, there's part of it on how that is gonna interact with the existing process, but a lot of time they are like net new stuff. And as an internal person, you are basically limited on how a single company is wanting to leverage Salesforce. Versus in the consulting, you really get to see how different companies use different things and how different the setup is, which is, I think, the fun part of consulting. And there's, of course, less policy, like politics in consulting, because you're like at the point where they bring you in. Usually there is already alignment on the scope and the budget, versus as an internal, a lot of time you have to advocate for that. Like if you want time on your team for your team to do, I don't know, for example, migrating from process builder to flow, then you kind of have to advocate that to your leadership team and be like, hey, we really need to time and budget to do this because it is a requirement from Salesforce, so we need to get it done. Versus at the time usually when a consultant got a project, there's already approval and there's less of that non-technical work, I guess.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I basically agree with all of the things that you mentioned. My first Salesforce jobs were in-house before I started Candybox and went into consulting. And it really is completely different working for one company and getting completely in the weeds with all of their processes, all of their teams, all of the nitty-gritty day-to-day stuff versus working with 5 different companies at once across different areas of their business and maybe having more of a high-level picture. Yeah, I'm curious to dig into this topic a little bit more. If you were somebody who's maybe still early on in your Salesforce career and you're trying to decide, should I go down the consulting path to start with, or maybe look for an in-house role, what do you see as some of the pros and cons of each choice?
So if you're an in-house role, depending on how big the company is, but if it's like a small to medium-sized company, you're likely to wear multiple hats. You will probably have exposure to things that you are typically not responsible for at that job level. So for example, when I was a junior Salesforce admin, in my first job, I actually got exposure to like Apex triggers and API callouts because there's nobody else to do it. So even though it is not in my job description, I got the chance to kind of develop that skill. Versus in consulting, I imagine there's always someone who's more specialized in that area, where you might have less opportunity to basically step up and learn that skill. On the other hand, in consulting, I think you also have the benefit of like exposing to multiple different processes so that you develop the understanding of, okay, this is not different companies solve problems in their own way, and there oftentimes is not a right or wrong answer to it. It's always like a mix of trade-off and what they prioritize. I think if you're in a consulting environment, you get a lot of that, and it's really helpful as you grow into a more senior role, because by the time that you're ready for your next role, you would have seen a lot of Salesforce instances and how people solve problems and what are the consequence of that decision, I guess. And also in consulting, you will also get a lot of mentoring from your peers or someone who's more senior than you, versus if you work for a smaller company as a solo admin, it's really all you. So it's really on you to learn the best practice, and that oftentimes can be a barrier in your growth.
Yeah, yep. Agreed. No further additions from me. I think you covered all of the main points. Going back to you and your career path thus far, can you think of any key turning points or moments in your journey that really shaped where you've got to today and the professional that you are today?
There are multiples. I think the first moment is actually in Candybox, where like when I joined, I started as an internal junior admin at a small company, right? There's really nobody for me to compare my level to, so I wasn't like, I think I was doing a good job, but I couldn't tell because there wasn't comparison.
Yeah.
Then I moved into Candybox, where I'm actually able to see what my peers are doing and what I'm doing and the outcome of that. That, I think, through the feedback I got from Candybox is when I realized, oh, I'm actually really good at the technical stuff. And I also realized that, oh, the customer facing stuff is probably not for me. So during my time in Candybox, I try to stay more focused on the technical skill and try to learn as much of the technical stuff as possible. And I embrace like basically every single technical challenge that Candybox throw my way, and where I tend to shy away from the customer interaction. The second moment is actually in corporate, where it's my my current company and also my former company, where when I was doing discussion my career path with my manager, she pointed out that I am really strong in the technical skill, but I'm lacking some of the soft skills, and also like I need to build my brand. That's where I realized that, okay, in order for me to get to my next step, I probably need to do some of that. So I started like just documenting my learning on my blogs and speaking Salesforce conferences, and just like pushing myself to be more, extrovert is not the right word, but taking on more responsibility in cross-functional teams, and also taking on more responsibility when communicating to client. I would say I still stay more on the technical side, but slowly I'm getting more comfortable with the customer-facing side.
Great. First of all, can confirm you took on basically every challenge we threw at you. You're a rock star, which is a very cheesy thing to say, but is absolutely true. Dee is A+++++. The second question is, so how many conferences have you spoken at now and counting?
It's a lot that I don't keep track of it anymore. There's a year that is like very conference heavy for me because I wasn't sure if I will ever get accepted into a single conference. So I just applied to them all, and I got accepted into almost every single one. And at that point I was like, well, it is opportunity. I work for that. I know it's a lot of work, but I'm gonna take them. So that year is very, like, I think I spoke at 6 or 7 different Salesforce conferences, but this year I'm limited myself to only one conference. So it's not, so it doesn't interfere with my day job.
It's more manageable. Yeah. I'm curious to ask you a bit about building your brand on LinkedIn. You're a little bit of an influencer there. I'm sure that a lot of people would have seen your content. It's really great and really helpful. Is that something that you would recommend to other people looking to build a career in and around Salesforce? What kind of opportunities or impact have you seen as a direct result of being more active and visible on LinkedIn and other platforms?
I think I chose to build those content because a lot of time that is also serve as a documentation for me, myself. Like at times, especially, I don't know how to do index match out of my head. Like I don't remember the step, but I wrote an article about it, so I can always reference back and be like, oh, that's how I did it. So that came from a place of like, this is easier for me to build my brand. It's a baby step, right? It's not like I'm completely throwing myself out there by going to conference. Now I am, but at the time I wasn't. And like I still don't have to talk to people. I just need to document my learning, and that's something I enjoy doing. So that is the route that I took. I don't think that you have to take this route, and I think it kind of like, the article happened in a very organic way. I think when I started it, I have like 100 LinkedIn connection or something, and now I have like a lot more than that. I think there are some learning that hit home. There are some learning that did not do well. But to me, they are like, I value them equally. So I think that influence is like pretty organic, and I'm not like tailoring my content to specific group. If you look at my blog, it's anywhere from big like best practice for flow to a very small specific problems. So probably not the best person to ask in terms of strategy to build your brand, but I did try myself, and I think the outcome of that is this serve as a really good practice to come up with idea and come up with, hey, how do I explain this in an easy way to either a business user or like another Salesforce professional. And ultimately it did help me in building my kind of like conference topics and ideas and slides. And also I met some cool people through my content, and they just like recognized me, and then they sent me a LinkedIn Connect, and then we met in conference and become like close friends.
That's great. Yeah, actually, I think it's really interesting the perspective you're looking at things from, because a lot of people think about, okay, how can I use LinkedIn to help me get a job, for example, get a promotion, which is totally valid, of course. But what you're saying is like your content emerged kind of organically from a desire to make your life a bit easier in a way, sort of like documenting solutions that you already knew were useful, but we're all human, we're not going to remember these things out of our heads. And you sort of leaned on this like natural desire to do those things to help other people. And yeah, you made new connections, you've made friendships, but you've also improved your skills as a professional through doing that in maybe some unexpected ways. It's great. Okay, let's see. What would you say are some of the most valuable skills, either technical skills or maybe soft skills or something else, that have helped you get to where you are nowadays in your Salesforce career?
I feel like what really makes me stand out in the Salesforce ecosystem is my ability to learn new things. I mean, it is something that I enjoy, and I do think that I might have a slight edge in terms of my learning speed compared to other people. I do tend to be able to, like, if I don't know the answer of something, or if I just have never done anything, I do tend to be able to look at what is this out there and figure out and piece together a solution. I feel like that is probably the single thing that set me apart from other people. I know that other people might have different experience in their career growth. Like one of my really good Salesforce friends, her kind of superpower is her ability to communicate be the bridge between the business team and the tech team. Like she can do the translation really, really well. So that is kind of her superpower. And I think we each have different superpower. And we just need to find it.
Yep, I completely agree. I think part of, applying this advice to other people, it's identifying, like you say, where your strengths are as a unique individual and how those can be applied to your career. And hopefully if you do that, then you're going to end up in a position that's a better suit for you, because you'll be doing something that you feel good at and that you hopefully enjoy. But yeah, I think the skill that you mentioned, being able to learn quickly and also independently, sort of find solutions to answers that don't necessarily say have an easily accessible or easily documented answer, is very, very valuable. It's definitely something that we look for in consultants at Candybox, because although Salesforce is, it's a technical platform, I think there is a lot of creativity in the work that we do. It's not always A plus B equals C. It's like there's so many different paths to be able to get to the answer C. And so some sort of creative or lateral thinking and like being able to get to that like final point independently is like really, really helpful. Okay, thinking about more like formal ways of getting into Salesforce or developing your career, are there any specific certifications or learning paths that you think are particularly useful and that you would recommend to somebody looking to grow their career?
Yeah, I think if you're coming through like the technical, by technical I mean either Salesforce Admin or Salesforce Developer, I think the first cert for anybody to have is the basic Salesforce Admin cert, because that applies anywhere. If you work in the Salesforce ecosystem, you need to have that cert. That's like your foundation. If you are on the technical path, depending on which one, like whether you want to do admin or whether you want to do developer, for developer like PD1, I will hold off on PD2 because that one is a really hard cert, but PD1 is probably the next one you want to get. For admins, I found a lot of value in the app builder certification, just like not the certification itself, but like the process of studying and learning new things to get that certification. If you're on the like BA path, I will still recommend going to getting the Salesforce Admin, because that is going to help you communicate the requirement and ask the right question to the business team and communicate back to the technical team. So I think that is the first step. And then if you're a BA and PM, probably I know there are Salesforce BA cert, but there are also other platforms out there like PMI that you can look at, which in my role, I find that content really helpful because right now I'm more on the business side. So I am running into those challenges and I'm realizing, hey, there are skills like BA skills and PM skill that as I grow into a higher level, that becomes more valuable to me to have. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's great. Okay, somewhat related, but a little bit different. Are there any underrated tools or features that come to mind in the Salesforce ecosystem that you think more people should be taking advantage of?
Yeah, this is gonna be a little bit targeted, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but as someone who came up from the Salesforce Admin path, it has helped me a lot. Is to learn the basic of coding. Like that will open you to using tools like Optimizer, for example, to export records and quickly see the result of a testing or what have you. And it will also give you exposure to platform like VS Code, which I use daily in my job or almost daily in my job. What else? In the VS Code, there is a package that does like flow visualization for you, where it will export it into a flow chart where if you need to do documentation or audit, that is a great time saver that I like to use. There is also a kind of like a XML package generator, also a VS Code package that allow you to basically use VS Code and get the metadata in a very declarative way. That's why I say this is really targeted toward admins. Like, yes, VS Code is scary, GitHub is scary, but I think there are enough declarative clicky function in VS Code that you will still find the user's experience easy instead of like, oh, now I have to write code to be able to do my job. No.
Yeah. So it's kind of, if you learn the basics, then you unlock the ability to use some super useful tools within the wider ecosystem. Even if you're not working as a developer, they're going to make your life easier and your work more efficient.
Yeah.
Yep. Great.
Also, there is another tool called Salto.
Salto?
They are a paid tool, but they have a free tier. I use that a lot when I need to audit what is this in the system because it allows you to search even the hard-coded value.
Interesting.
For example, if you say in your flow, you say, hey, if user IDs equal this, then your logic run, right? Which is not, of course, not the best practice, but in real life, it does happen a lot. Yeah. To be able to find those, there's no easy way to find that in Salesforce unless you just go through every single flow and then try to find it. But if you search it in Salto, there will be results that come up, and it has helped me a lot to locating those things that are hard to find. Yeah.
That's super useful. Or maybe if you're trying to delete something and Salesforce is like, no, this is referenced in 300 places, but I'm not going to tell you where they all are. I guess you could use it for that type of thing as well.
Yes.
Oh, that's super useful. Okay, I just got, I think, two more questions for you. So if you could go back and give your younger self one single piece of career advice, what do you think it would be?
I will say ask for feedback often and early. I feel like a lot of the decisions I made in my Salesforce career, or a lot of how I came to find out what I'm good at, are really from the feedback that people give me. And a lot of time, like, I'm not in the habit of asking for feedback early on in my career, so I really rely on when people tell me things, then I know. But I'm not like, I think if I proactively ask for it, it will help me to come to the path that I'm on earlier, and it will also help me identify ways that, like, what I'm lacking and how I can improve. And I wish I had those conversations more.
Yeah, that's great. It's something that even I could do more often.
I think we all can.
Yeah, I think so too. Just made me think, I'm like, there's like 5 different areas of my life where I could be asking for more feedback right now. I think also to add, I think not just individual contributors, but people managers as well could get a lot of really useful insight by asking for feedback and making sure that they're receiving that with an open mind.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So now I'm trying to remember what my second question was for you. I think it's just, I know that you always have so many different projects and initiatives going and things that you're working on. Is there anything you would like to plug or call out or call attention to before we wrap up today?
Yes, actually, Southeast Dreaming is happening in June. I forgot the date, but let me quickly Google that. It is June 26 to 27. It is going to be hosting in Atlanta. And this is our last year in Atlanta, so we're going to make it big and fun. And Kathryn here is a speaker at the conference. So if you want to go see her and swing by and see me, that is a really good conference to go to.
Wonderful. Okay. Dee, it's always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate all of the amazing advice you've had to share.
Thank you for inviting me.